Welcome to the Liquidity Event, a show about all things personal finance with a laser focus on taxes, financial independence, and equity compensation. Hosted by AJ and Shane of Brooklyn FI, each episode will focus on a personal finance topic, some driven by news headlines and sometimes driven by listener questions. And sometimes you'll just get two money nerds rambling about what they think is interesting. Just a quick note before we get started, this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered tax or investment advice.
Hello, and welcome to the Liquidity Event. I'm your host, Ali Jane Ayers.
And I'm Giacomo Dallafrete.
Welcome, Giacomo. This is episode 152, being recorded on July 16th, airing July 17th. That's tomorrow. That's right, folks. We have a new updated podcast release schedule. We will now be releasing on Thursday mornings instead of Friday mornings because it is the summer and most of us don't really feel like listening to podcasts where two idiots talk about the financial news on our Friday mornings. We probably just want to sip our coffee and read the New Yorker or whatever else you do on Friday morning. So we will see you Thursday mornings now at 6 a.m. on all podcast platforms. How are you doing, Mr. Shane Mason?
I'm great. I'm in Bari, Italy, in the south of...
Italia.
Yeah. I forgot to say Giovanni. That's my actual name. I love the cognates, like how names come from different places. Like, I don't know what my name in Italian is Giovanni. And in English or like in
Shane
England,
is Giovanni?
Yeah.
Really?
Because, John from the Bible became Giovanni in Italy, but it became John in England, which became Sean in other parts of Ireland, which became Shane.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the development of
You'll
a name.
love to see it.
Dear listener.
You'll love to see it. Dear listener.
It's really fun to know
today,
what your name is in other languages.
Today on the show, folks, we have capital gains tax being eliminated in a middle flyover state. We have Potentially, but it's looking like it. Return to office is hurting women. Surprise, surprise. A fun science fair in the Capitol building. And some rich people personal finance listener questions. Oh, and where to find your old 401k, where 401ks go to die. Shane, tell me the best pasta dish you've had in the past 7 days.
Well, they specialize in orecchiette. Sorry for all
Which means ear, right?
Little ear, yeah.
Little ear.
In Italian. So I'm in this town because my sisters both worked at a restaurant called Bari when we were growing up, and it's on the southern coast in Puglia. So that's when I took a ferry over from Greece, which was a lovely overnight ferry. I had a little cabin, slept in a queen-size bed, and woke into the country, which was super cute. But yeah, orecchiette with squid ink. Honestly, the octopus salads here are fantastic with celery, etc. So it's like definitely a food tour, but after being away for a couple of weeks, a lot of emails needed to get responded to, so mostly just holed up in an Airbnb and then just going out for dinner and a glass of wine. So yeah.
Nice. Very nice. You and I were hanging out in Greece for a few days. That was fun.
Very true.
Diving in the Mediterranean.
What was your favorite part of our rendezvous in the Eastern Med?
My favorite part was, swimming in the Mediterranean, just like walking off a rock and just like being in the beautiful, like slightly cold, but like not freezing waters, and just watching the boats go by and looking up at a hillside dotted with, white stucco houses. It was gorgeous. We were on an island called Hydra, which I thought was lovely. I thought it was like the right amount of, I don't know. We're all tourists. Like let's dispense with the idea that we're not going to be tourists. We're tourists. We're Americans in someone else's country. But it felt less. It did not feel crowded. It felt the right amount of crowded, I would say, for summer in Europe in a beautiful place.
You dealing with guilt? You feel guilty for traveling?
No. I'm this idea that like, oh, this place is off the beaten path. Like, no, it has Airbnbs, so it's catering to folks like you and I.
Nowhere's off the beaten path. Like,
yeah.
Like Albania, like unless you're in like the DRC, like I'm sorry. Even I'm sure there's Airbnbs in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Yeah, Chechnya. I'm sure there's Airbnbs in Antarctica. Like it's over, folks.
Perfect.
Like everywhere has been explored. Unless you're 2 hours outside of Vladivostok. I'm not trying to hear about
there you go. Sounds lovely. Sounds a little chilly. Actually, given that it's 85 degrees with 110% humidity in New York, I wouldn't mind a little Arctic outpost visit this summer. Yeah, I had a great time. We had a great time in Italy, I was also in Italy, but we had a great time in
We had a good
Greece.
time in Greece. Yeah. There
Italy,
it is.
Greece,
Vacation
it's all
brain.
great. It's all great to me, you know.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, one thing that struck me about Greece was how do I say this? I'd never been. It was my first time in Greece. The sort of the crumbling infrastructure, like driving through Athens and just looking at like the state of buildings being dilapidated, the number of people out of work kind of roaming the streets, even the people working feeling not very motivated because, you know, there's no tipping culture, the wages are extremely low. They're just it seems like, I don't know. I mean, there was that huge Greek, I don't remember my recent economic history, but there was like a huge crash, like 10 or 15 years ago, and they've sort of been slowly recovering from that. But I don't know, it did feel like tourism was the only thing kind of pumping blood into the economy, which was awful to experience. Thoughts?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Greece, I think it was in 2012 when the debt crisis
12,
happened.
yeah.
I forget exactly when that went down. But yeah, that was all over the news for a long time. But
What was that?
yeah,
The guy, like Giannis, what's his last name? He like
Do
wrote
not
a great
remember.
book about it, and he was like all over NPR talking about it for. Anyway, yeah, I remember
Yeah.
that very clearly.
Yeah. Athens is not a pretty city, and the Greek economy has not done very well over the past like 30 years. And I was spent a lot of time with Greeks while I was there, and they have been lamenting it as well. But yeah, tourism is a huge part of their economy. I mean, all of Europe, unfortunately. Like GDP of Europe has just not hit the same strides that America has, for sure. And it's getting worse. There's like a wealth gap between the Greeks. And I love people have this idea of Europeans all being like way smarter than us and having everything figured out. And I mean, that could be the case now, but you fast forward at like the pace of wealth inequality that's happening, if you extrapolate that over the next 100 years, and it's going to be like two different entire civilizations. And Americans go over there. It's so easy for us to go over there, even though the dollar is getting destroyed by the current administration, but the value of the dollar and inflation and all that. But it's going to be dramatic. I mean, people have compared it to just being a museum, and there's not really much happening in the entire continent. Like, how many startups out of Europe? We weren't planning on having this conversation today, but obviously it's been on my mind. I've been over here a couple of months now, and it's like, but also, what do you do? Do you like cut regulations to such a drastic degree that people over here don't have the same protection that they're used to having, and they don't have the same safety net? I mean, you can make that argument, or is there a lot more going on besides just, you know, enacting a right to, or creating the ability to fire people immediately without much protection?
Yeah, incentivizing people to work, but in order to be incentivized to work, there has to be a promise of a better life. So I don't know how you achieve that on such a big scale. And, you know, a lot of the tourist money, unfortunately, is being funneled right back to the countries that we're coming from. Like, a lot of the hotels are being built by corporations they're not Greek corporations, because the Greek corporations don't have money. And I'm sure there's fantastic tax incentives for foreigners to come in and develop waterfront and develop these islands. But I don't think it, at least to me, it did not seem like a lot of the money was staying in the country, and was not being redistributed. What I'm trying to say, folks, is that the service was awful, and we had a 4.5-hour dinner, and it took 40 minutes for us to get a freaking menu, and we had to order 4 bottles of wine at the beginning because we knew we would not get more bottles of wine.
So I will say, one of my favorite, I was sailing for 2 weeks, and that's when I met the most Greeks, and I spent 2 weeks with this Greek sailor that loves Greece, and he had this hilarious comment. First of all, to your point, it's Greek Standard Time, and it's not like a separate time zone. He was describing what it's like to be Greek, and he's like, we are like the Mexico of Europe. It was hilarious. I really love his approach to it, because I got like the behind the scenes look. And there is like a methodology where you have to abandon your expectations of the waiter ever coming to the table.
Right. Yeah.
They're not coming. I've asked for a bill before, and then watched my waiter go across the street and smoke a cigarette, and then bring the bill afterwards. It was awesome. It was like so in your face. It's like just middle finger.
You just unlocked a core memory of mine. In high school, my mom lived in like the guest house behind this like larger house owned by this like Greek guy and his like daughters. Anyway, long story short, he made this like amazing Greek chicken. We were like, why is this chicken so good? It's so delicious. And my mom is like really into food. And she was like, I forget his name. It was like Costas or something. She's like, Costas, like, teach me the recipe. And he's like, okay. So he's like, I'm going to make it on Sunday. You come by. I'll teach you how to make it. Lemon, oregano, herbs, put it in a plastic bag, put it out in the sun for 8 hours. She was like, excuse me? You want me to put raw chicken out in the sun for 8 hours?
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, it's fine. My family's been doing this for generations. And it was fine. I was terrified to eat it, but like, it was fine. And just like, trust me, it will be fine. It might take 10 hours. You might have salmonella, but it's totally fine. And it was fucking delicious.
Hell yeah. Shout
Anyway,
out to
I'm gonna bring it.
Costas. Yeah.
I'm gonna bring it back. Speaking of taxes, we have a bill in this great state of Missouri that will potentially eliminate capital gains tax altogether. The current capital gains tax in Missouri is 4.7%. And if this passes, which honestly it kind of seems like it's going to, and it's going to pass in the next couple of weeks, we'll have an answer, that will bring that 4.7 down to 0, meaning that if you sell an asset that you've held, usually for more than a year, instead of you'll of course still pay federal capital gains tax, can't escape that. For now, well, with this new bill, you might be able to. But in your state, if you live in Missouri, you were previously paying about 5%. You will now pay 0 to the state of Missouri. I imagine this is to incentivize people to stay in Missouri and move to Missouri and encourage businesses. There's also some great carve-outs for corporations. But this is going to be a fairly significant revenue hit for the state, who's used to collecting that 5% on capital gains. My key takeaway is that it was, I don't know, it's attention grab. I think it's going to pass. Do you think it's actually going to go through?
I didn't look into the possibility of it passing. I was just more concerned on like the continual ideology of lowering taxes is good.
Yeah.
Like this more money shifted from labor to capital. And it just reminded me of this great reel I saw the other day about the idea that the middle class was invented in an effort to keep the lower class and the middle class from arguing about whether or not they're lower and middle class, when in reality it's labor versus capital. And labor makes up 90% of the voting base, but if we keep us distracted, then you get laws like this where the people that definitely don't need a tax break get yet another tax break, and the more money that they have, the more money that they can push into additional legislation that reduces or increases wealth inequality. And then at what point do we how many Luigi Mangionis is it going to take before like people like start tilting the scales back towards labor? I don't know. That's why I don't know if it's going to pass, but the ruling class needs to be very careful with all of these shifts.
Just to refresh everyone for what we're talking about. Capital gains it's a lower tax rate already, and it's paid on things like selling your house, or selling stock, or selling an ownership stake in a company that you invest in. And if you're a family of 4 living in an urban city in Missouri, you don't own your property, you probably don't have a ton of taxable investments, like this is not going to impact you at all. Like you do not benefit from this. Yet the headline is, we're reducing taxes for you, but this tax cut is not going to trickle down. You have to own something, be able to hold it, and not need to live off of it for a while in order to benefit from this tax break. So, don't need any more tax breaks. For some comparison for our New Yorker clients, the New York State capital gains rate is, it goes as high as 10%, but let's say you have $1 million of capital gains, you'd be in the 6.85% bracket. So if you were to move from New York City or not New York City, that's not even counting city tax. If you were living in upstate New York and you moved to St. Louis, established residency, sold some, let's say RSUs, you had $1 million gain, you would save almost $70,000 in income taxes in 1 year on $1 million gain. So it's to me, not enough to tempt me to live in St. Louis permanently, but for some, maybe it is. Maybe it's going to work. I don't know. Maybe we're going to see a new tech hub spring up in Kansas City. Hey, if it's good enough for Taylor Swift, it's good enough for me.
I would love that. I think St. Louis might be the destination that would be more attractive to a lot of people. It reminds me of one of the co-founders of DFA. I know we have a lot of advisors that listen to this podcast. One of the co-founders of DFA actually lived in St. Louis and founded, and Ruben knows this because Ruben
he's
Miller.
He's a big proponent of this bill, actually.
Of course. Well, I think he's dead, but is he dead?
The other guy. Okay.
If he's not dead, he definitely legislated for this because he's a multi-billionaire. He created the Chess Club of St. Louis, which has one of the best worldwide chess championships every year.
Yeah, that's great.
There's in St. Louis, surprisingly, but yeah, he definitely would legislate for this. And all that said, I do understand states, especially the ones that have been hollowed out by the manufacturing going overseas, do need to compete for talent from a tax legislative position. So I do understand it if that's what they're trying to accomplish. But 0% on cap gains, come on.
At least make it, at least give us a carve out and then a cliff. Give us a carve out, fine. Make the first 500,000 0% and then 5% after that. I like this.
Sure.
You know me. I love my cliffs, my tax cliffs. Let's repopulate the middle class. Speaking of repopulating, in America's return to office, women are falling behind. We have an article from the Wall Street Journal. The TLDR here is that women are in a survey of 7,000 people. So, obviously exactly reality. Women are slightly more inclined to want to work from home still. And by doing so, they are potentially missing out on career growth. They're not in the office. So, they're not in their boss's face showing how awesome they are. They're not attending the networking events because they're working from home, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know. I thought this was a pretty weak argument here. Any thoughts?
Yeah, same. I thought kind of a clickbaity article intended to make us feel I don't know. The people that want to work from home are getting to. I think work from home is an awesome thing. That is just an additional option that didn't used to be an option for women. It feels like a positive thing. But at the same time, I do agree that do you not feel that people that go should be rewarded for going to the office? Yeah. Right? Yeah, I hear that. It's not a huge difference, right? It's 5% of
it's a 6%. Yeah, 36% of employed women work from home on an average day in 2024, and 29%. Okay, so a 7% difference. That's not someone made a headline out of this, so we would talk about it.
Yeah,
that's not
we
dramatic.
are.
And here we are.
But it does open up interesting things about questions about should paternity leave be the same as maternity leave. I don't think that it is. I didn't do any research on it. Some research that I did do though, which I thought was interesting, was that the percentage of men that want kids versus the percentage of women that want kids. Because in my head I was like, okay, well if you want kids and you probably then are working from home, so you're probably just kind of reaping what you're sowing. I don't know how to get to total equality, that type of vibe. I was asking those questions to myself about that, but it turns out that more men want kids than women, and a lot of the answers, a lot of reasons why, is because the women will end up doing all the childcare, and then they'll be giving up they'll be experiencing what they're seeing in this article. The promotions go away. The opportunities to advance your career go away because you're handling more of the at-home hours than the man would be typically. So, it's continuing about the American balance of household duties.
Yeah, and it's, it takes an employer to lay the groundwork and help usher along that equality, or the option for it, right? And I think equality, in the history of feminism is kind of a dangerous word, because it's what does equal mean? Everyone gets to define equal is not the same for everyone. Equal is, to me, or as an employer, you and I think about how can we make sure our employees have their basic needs taken care of, feel valued at work, and can spend enough time with their families. And their families might be cats and dogs, or it might be 6 kids. And whatever you choose, someone who's gonna get some companies offer incredible benefits for people who want to be parents. They'll cover the entire cost of embryo freezing if that's for you, or the entire cost of adoption. But it's well, what if I'm a single person who isn't going to get to take advantage of any of that? What do I get? Pet insurance? Okay, maybe that's equality there. To me, equality for someone being able to choose the life they want, have kids or not have kids, is about just having the optionality and feeling like you're well compensated to live the life you want. So that's my soapbox rant for the day. This article was a bunch of fluffernutter nonsense.
Right on. Yeah, I felt the same way. I mean, I'm happy to have the conversation, but this just seems like they needed to fill a slot and they wanted to get some clicks. So
Yeah, I mean, I will just say the option to work from home, like for women specifically, because yes, women do carry more of the burden of the childcare and the household duties. That's just the way it is. And I think it is changing. I think it's trending in the right direction as men are doing more of it. But having the option to work from home, I believe, does increase the quality of life for moms and kids. Like, kid gets out of school at 3:00, hey, I'm going to BRB on Slack. I'll be back in 20 minutes. I'm going to go pick my kid up from the bus stop. Like, we're going to get to hang out. We're going to go get ice cream. I'm going to go back to work. As opposed to like, hey, I'm running late because my train got canceled from, Penn Station. And, I'm not going to be up until 9:00 and the kid's asleep. And the babysitter costs another, $80 or whatever the going rate is. By the way, what do you think the going rate of a babysitter is in Brooklyn right now per hour? I learned this over the weekend.
Dog, your journey up to it's incredible. I'm sure it's not can't be $80 an hour. I'm going to go $30 an hour.
Yeah, my friend just was paying $28 an hour, obviously plus 20% tip. So yeah, about 32
Which
an
is
hour.
what minimum wage would be if we index it for inflation from the 80s, right? Like that's it's not a lot. Like if you think about, So that's 3 times what I pay for someone to watch my dog for a whole day in Mexico or all night, like keep him, including the food and all that. Yeah, New York's tough. New York's expensive.
It is. You should read my Substack called New York or Nowhere, a cost-benefit analysis of living in the greatest city in the world that I published yesterday that I know Shane read.
Are you directing that at me? Because assuming I don't read your Substack. Yeah.
I don't know. You were just talking about the high cost of living in New York City, and I thought, wow, I've got a great link for you if you want to explore how much more it actually costs to live in New York City. But I digress.
Thanks for letting me know, a 10-year resident of New York City, how much it costs.
I actually, so in the Substack, I have a type form quiz about whether you are still in love with New York City. I would actually be very curious to hear your results because I think that you love New York, yet you chose to leave. You chose to leave, and I'd be curious where you fall in the, do you still love New York, and does New York love you back camp?
I don't know if it loves me back, but I definitely love New York and spend at least 2 or 3 months every year in New York. I'll be there in 10 days for a couple months.
Can't wait.
Yeah, it is weird hearing all of I don't feel like a New Yorker anymore. I feel like a former New Yorker for sure, as I should feel. But because you definitely lose a club when you give up New York City because it is like a big topic of conversation for New Yorkers. As is, I feel like people don't talk about Mexico City as much. Like we see the gentrification stuff on the internet and people text me and I'm like, yeah, that was 200 Redditors that just spray painted a bunch of stuff. Let me tell you from on the ground. But we don't have the same conversations that New Yorkers do about that intensity. We honestly are tired of talking about it because usually when we talk about Mexico City, it's somebody that wants to know from zero information, from scratch, and it's the same conversation. Yeah.
I need to understand the entire socio-political situation of a city of, what is it, 20 million people, Mexico City?
Okay, yeah. What's the podcast?
Also, we've had crazy rain here in New York City. Obviously, we saw not everyone, but you maybe have seen the videos of the subways flooding.
Yeah, some people died. I saw. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's everyone who doesn't live here is watching the news. Are you dead? Are you okay? Because the news would imply that no one can leave their house in all 5 boroughs, which was not the case. Yes, some people tragically lost their lives, but when we're consuming so much information and we're just getting, the algorithm forces up the most extreme, horrible things, we miss the whole picture. So anyway, we're very philosophical today.
Well, I meant to mention earlier that I'm supposed to be excited for the podcast. It's just really hard to get worked up after a couple of weeks of vacation. I have vacation voice right now. I'm like, look at these articles.
Anyway,
I'm supposed to be furious about the Missouri cuts, the capital gains tax.
And you're like, it's fine.
What could go wrong? I have a tan. Gentlemen, if you're not watching this, Shane
you're
has
blinded
a tan for
by
the
your
first
own
time
tan.
In 10 years. Yeah, I can't get worked up.
You have sunscreen. You have benzoxide or whatever. What's the bad ingredient in sunscreen? You've been poisoned. Anyway, speaking of bad ingredients in sunscreen and other medical and scientific studies, article here from NPR: canceled grants get a spotlight at a Capitol Hill science fair. This was a sort of cute, also horrifically terrifying article. Basically, a bunch of scientists who had their NIH grants revoked by the administration made like middle school science fair style posters about the research they were doing in cancer, epidemiology, all of these important fields that we should continue to study. And they're basically saying, here's the research I'm doing, which will lead to, I don't know, curing cancer or, stopping the next pandemic, but I can't do it anymore. So please come and look at my research and try to save the future of humanity. At first I was like, oh, this is so cute. And then I read it and I was like, oh God, this is diabolical.
It's a pretty lighthearted article, to be frank.
Yeah.
But it's really dark in reality. I mean, this is the product of policies written by people that believe in a God. They believe in a God that allowed a Sandy Hook to happen, not to go like over the edge very quickly, but they allowed the Texas floods to happen, and they are just sending thoughts and prayers and not funding, the NOAA, which would help with preventing massive losses of life. And unfortunately, when you hand the keys to in my opinion, a non-existent entity, then you're going to get non-existent results. And it is unfortunate that we pay insurance policies, and it's really hard to know what in the insurance policies being weather forecasting and prevention and all of these. An epidemiologist here that's trying to solve the next COVID, and we don't know if we'll be what if those costs that we experience are good investments, because maybe they solve the COVID doesn't happen, and it does become a once in 100-year issue. Because we have funded these research, and they're not that expensive. It's not a huge part of our budget. We just slice a little. It's really the only lighthearted thing I thought about this is when somebody called cancer research an amorphous expense, which was definitely just the first word alphabetically in the thesaurus when they looked up the word uncertain in terms of if there's going to be a good outcome for this expense. It's like, cool, yeah, we found all of the waste in the treasury. Yeah. It's research, scientific research. There's
on
no
cancer.
waste.
Yeah. It just blows my mind. I understand the harsh, disgusting commitment to individuality, meaning if you can't see someone else's problems or you've never experienced them, you don't know about them and you don't want to fund them. But cancer and heart disease are things that impact almost everyone, right? It's so pervasive that someone, if you live in 2025, you probably know someone who is either battling cancer actively or has passed away from cancer. So to think that it's a good idea to cut this funding basically guarantees loss of life, and money doesn't save you, right? There are certain cancer treatments that having money and access to can delay the inevitable, but we need really smart people with government grants fixing this stuff. This scares the shit out of me. As someone with a ton of health problems, I'm scared.
Right on. It would be less all of the previous research that we've done didn't come out to this is the country that created the Manhattan Project, right? This is the country that had
we have a pretty good
incredible
track
breakthrough
record.
Starts with funding of the NIH. Yes. So it's embarrassing that we're making cuts.
It is embarrassing. Yeah, and hopefully, we'll survive this, and hopefully researchers will go to places like China and France where research is being funded, and Russia potentially, which is nuts, but here we are. Anyway, a little bit of lighthearted, regular personal. What, go ahead.
I just read an article about a Christian that was scared of the gays in America. So he brought his family to Russia. And
no gays in Russia.
In an effort to speed up citizenship, he joined the army because he thought he'd be a welder. Because he was a welder for 30 years. And I'm sorry, a little bit of schadenfreude here, but they immediately sent him to the front lines in Ukraine. Unfortunately, it's kind of dark, but that was definitely a fuck around and find out moment. Joining Russian military, so because you're scared of the gay, just within the topic of anti-homosexuality and the Christian, some Christians' beliefs here in America. Anyway, fun science education, folks.
Fun times. A little bit of let's close it out with a little bit of lighthearted personal
finance.
That
was not as funny as I thought it was going to be.
Education tip for you. If you have an old 401k, folks, now there is a government-sponsored 401k lost and found. This was Ed on our team asked me to promote this on the pod. If you go to lostandfound.dol.gov and you sign with your login.gov ID, you can see if you have any 401ks attached to your social security number and potentially find money that you had previously lost. Maybe you had a 401k from an old employer that you had in first couple jobs, forgot about it, don't know how much money's in there. We once found $12,000 for a client because they had an old 401k at some job they forgot about. And with an employer match, you know, couple $1,000 with the power of compound interest, you know, you never know. So there's the DOL one, which is lovely, which is free. There's also a private company called Beagle, which is meetbeagle.com, and they appear to provide the same service. But as you and I both know, sometimes it is worth paying for convenience and a lovely interface because the government interface, I guarantee you, is not easy to navigate. So if you have significant money that you think is somewhere in a 401k, it might be worth trying the private solution Beagle rather than the government 401k. Lost and found. That's all I've got for you folks. Any final words for our dear listeners, Mr. Shane?
No, I want to emphasize that it is a very small minority of Christians that carry those beliefs. So I don't want to ruffle too many feathers. I know some good Christians. Some of them are friends of mine.
We love everyone on this podcast.
Yeah. I hate when logic doesn't win the war, so to speak.
Yeah,
so it bums me out.
Yes. You read it. It was an interesting story. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks so much for listening. Email us your financial problems at liquidityevent@brooklynfi.com. Leave us a voicemail at memo.fm/theliquidityevent. We will play it on the air. And finally, Stans can leave us a review if they want to be rude about it. We will see you next Thursday, not Friday. Have a good week, folks.
Take care. Bye-bye. Ciao, bella.